Hey guys, before we get into the pod, I want to invite you with me, Tom, and Lisa for the first time ever to our real estate business scaling workshop up in Boston on May 15th. I've dropped all the details down below, but if you're looking to build a team, manage the team, and scale your real estate business, you want to join us on May 15th, just outside of Boston, at Lisa's headquarters for this real estate scaling business. We're going to share all of the things that we've done to build our teams with you so you can walk away and implement those processes into your business. Drop all the details down below, fill out the form, and we'll be in touch soon. See you guys in Boston.
If you're not getting educated about local and national real estate market conditions, news, industry trends, or the Zillow CCP fight, which we're going to talk about next, you're doing yourself and your client base a disservice. This is the Knowledge Brokers podcast. I'm Tom Toole here with Lisa Chinatti, mega sports fan, and Byron Lazine. But we've got the number one RE/MAX team leader in the whole world coming on.
In the world.
There he is, Gary Ashton from Nashville, Tennessee. Gary, super excited to have you come on. I've admired you from afar as a RE/MAX agent. I aspire to get maybe to number 2 someday. Hopefully then you'll hang out with me a little more. Thanks for coming on, man. Very, very happy to have you here.
Well, happy to be here. And actually, I would hang out with you more, Tom, if you come
I
to
showed
some
up.
of the
Yeah.
events.
If you
that
showed
we
up,
invite you to.
exactly.
Gary, tell everybody why you say "in the world" the way you say it.
Well,
I
I'm
mean, it
from
happens
England.
to be true, but also why you say that.
Yeah, so I'm from England, and every time I speak, I have now it's a little less pronounced, but if I say world, I say world, and people will say, "What are you saying? Word?" And I would have to try and emphasize it and try and replicate the American accent, which would be world, because it's a little world. And then it just kind of, I don't know, took on its own personality and became world. And it's
How long
been
have
history.
how long have you had that title? Number one RE/MAX in the world.
In the world, 7 or 8 or 9 years, I can't remember.
Sounds right. I can verify that as a fellow RE/MAX team leader.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Tom, you got some catching up to do.
I do. Well, fortunately, we're trying to get a little better every day here, Byron. So that's the game plan. That's why people listen to the pod. That's why we got Gary on. So I want to lead first. There was some big news that dropped yesterday. And Gary, I want your take on this. Zillow is banning listings that are publicly marketed off MLS. So they announced some new standards that are banning publicly marketed listings from appearing on Zillow and Trulia if they aren't submitted to the MLS within 24 hours. This is now aligning with NAR's clear cooperation, but clashes with the NAR's delayed marketing exemptions because NAR can't make a decision. They have to just offer options. And EXP is, they're all in on it. Obviously, Compass has a very different view on this. What do you think about this, Gary?
I wish I'd read more about it, but I do. I was just at the luxury real estate conference in New Orleans, and we kind of had a little bit of a discussion about this because I said Robert Reffkin came to the Inman event in Nashville. So I was on a panel there. Deborah was speaking. Deborah's my business partner. And I said, of course, Reffkin doesn't want this. He wants to create his own personal, listing source so that if you want to get more of the listing information, you've got to go and work with a Compass agent so they can double end the deals, basically. But a lot of it feels like it's going back to 1957 when everybody held their own listings. And it's kind of going back to how real estate is in England, or was when I was there. I'm from England, by the way. And so in England, there's no such thing as the buyer's agent, essentially. I may be wrong, but when I was there, for sure, there was no buyer's agent. It was caveat emptor. You had to go from one real estate store, they call them real estate agents, real estate agency. So if you wanted to look at houses, you go to one storefront, go in, pick out 2 or 3 homes you wanted to go see. That real estate agent would take you to those 3 houses. Then if you wanted to see the house next door, which was listed by another real estate company, you would have to go to that real estate company and get that real estate agent to show you the home. So it's bizarre that America became like the envy of the world because of the efficiency and the simplicity and having the multiple listing service to allow people, the consumer, to see all the homes that are listed for sale rather than just going into these little siloed listings. So I said that to me, for the seller, are you doing them a disservice by just kind of hoarding their listing within your company? Which I kind of feel you do, but it's also the seller's choice. So we had a little bit of a back and forth on that. But in my mind, the best way to sell your home is to maximize the exposure to as many potential buyers as possible, which is then you're agency agnostic. So you're appealing to the Compass agents, the Keller Williams agents, the independent agents, the Remax agents. So you're maximizing the exposure by putting it on the MLS. We have the ability to market that listing internally to our agents right now, because that's just the natural process of the thing. We're 180 agents in one office. So I may be wrong on this, but you're allowed to talk about the new listing within your office. We don't. I think the new ruling is if it's publicly marketed and it's not allowed to be seen by. It's not allowed to go on the MLS, then that's when they're saying they're not going to promote that ever,
Well,
right? Is that what
I
it
mean,
is?
what they're saying is if it goes publicly marketed, meaning this office exclusive, like what Compass is doing with their office exclusives, they're going on compass.com. The reason why they're able to do that is because the NAR kind of came out with this this
And we've had that in Tennessee for a while, actually.
yeah,
I think.
no, I know it's existed, but part of this new CCP, and really before the new CCP, you can put a listing on your VOW, which is your website, and if it is
That's a
supporting,
virtual office website. That's
yeah,
a VOW, right?
and if that VOW supports your brokerage activities, which everybody's website obviously supports their brokerage activities, then you can publicly list your office exclusive. And so what Zillow is saying is you're, creating another marketplace over there that not all buyers are going to have access to, because they're not going to keep track of every single marketplace. They want to be able to see all the listings in one place. And so what Zillow and now EXP co-signing on this, there was kind of like that joint announcement, is saying that no, if you do that, if you decide to publicly market it, then you will never, even if your listing then goes from there to the MLS, you will never end up on Zillow.com. Let's put delayed listings to the side for a second, because I do want to get into that.
Yeah.
Now, Compass comes out with stats that says their exclusives actually net a seller more money. I agree with you, Gary. It seems hard to believe that a seller is going to get more money by showing it to fewer buyers. Bright MLS, which is Tom's MLS.
How do they justify that they're actually making more for the client selling it?
I mean, they're just coming out. They're just coming out with stats,
Because unless you put it back on the market the next day after it's been sold, how would you actually know?
That sounds like a crock of shit to me. I mean, come on.
They've got enough. They're convincing certainly enough people to do this. Only on Compass, they have 22,000. This is as of 3 days ago on Rob Revkin Instagram. They have 22,000.
Well, I'll give you an analogy, because I used to work auctions with my buddy Danny Hale. He had his own auction company, and I was one of the guys that was, going 250. And at the end of the day, we would say, Danny would always say, we got the best price for the market. And I would say, well, it was the best price for the market today, but also you weren't inviting all of the other buyer agents because back then they weren't offering any commission for buyer agents, or I think maybe they were only giving 1%. So you really don't get the best price until you really offer that listing to every single agent and every single buyer's agent and every single buyer. It will do well in that momentary, spot of time. But if you want to maximize it, you really need to expand it to every possible buyer. And then I don't think that that's what's going to happen with
Yeah.
exclusives.
The data is so. Go ahead, Byron.
Well, I was just going to say, so 94% of Compass listings sell on the MLS. This is according to Compass. So, but right now they have 22,000 listings on this only on Compass. So a percentage of those, I don't know the percent, will end up going from Compass to MLS. What Zillow is not going to allow is that to end up on Zillow moving forward. Now, Compass says they make more money when the seller goes with the office exclusive. Bright MLS, Tom's MLS, says that's not the case. And they have, and so Bright MLS has built into their MLS, which has more than 100,000 home sale service areas. So they've got as much data as anybody on this kind of stuff as well. For whatever reason, their office exclusives are not netting more money. So homes take longer to sell when pre-marketed as an office exclusive. This is now according to Bright MLS. Yep. They say there's no price advantage to listing as an office exclusive. They say almost 90% that go office exclusive will transition into a standard MLS listing before being sold. So if 9 out of 10 are transitioning to the MLS, if you want to be on Zillow, you're going to have to just go to the MLS from day one. You're not going to be able to do this office exclusive, segment of the market. So I'd love to see why is Compass getting more money, or are they just kind of sharing the numbers that they want to share? They have very strong scripting. Just 3 weeks ago, middle of March, they had like 19,000 homes only on Compass. 3 weeks later, it's over 22,000. So the scripting is company wide to push people into this product to see that much growth in that short period of time. The scripting is strong. They're doing a great job getting people to do office exclusives. And, Zillow's obviously now taking their position that those office exclusives.
Well, this is where Tom is going to excel, because I'm going to steal Tom's listing script, when he talks about maximizing the exposure, not just to the Compass agents, but with Remax, we have global exposure. So why would you want to just keep it just to your local market or the local agents? Now, the local agents probably have buyers from all over the world, but why would you keep it just in that small little group? I know that some people...
It becomes an interesting conversation as you say that with Byron and I. So I'm an independent owner. Byron, you're affiliated with a regional independent, right? And so this whole part of the conversation becomes super interesting when you kind of take the national brand Compass and then the worldwide brand Remax and start putting the spins on it. I find it fascinating.
Well, and Remax is our franchise. So, Bright MLS looks at my office independently from other Remax offices. So we can't necessarily do that. There's something in the data here I wanted to point out. Compass was not the number one office exclusive company. It was actually Washington Fine Properties, who is, I know a couple people down there in DC. So they've got a lot of data on this. And I've got 2 case studies. I've walked through these homes where Compass agents are pushing this office exclusive. One of them had a deal in place. His home was at $1.3 million.
Washington Fine Properties is owned by Compass, I'm pretty sure.
But the point is, like, that Bright has a lot of data because that's in the footprint. That's what I'm saying, because that's in DC. And this home was they had it sold at $1.3 million. Agent reaches out to me, asks, can you look at this? Can you give me some help? I go over, take a look at the property. I said, I don't know why it's not selling. As soon as they take it to the open market, it sold for $1.425 million. It sold $125,000 more than the asking price, despite the Compass private exclusive deal they had. I've seen many case studies like this. And what Gary's talking about, you want all the agents interested anyway. Like, not everyone's going to work with that. So it's very clear. It's great for Compass It's not great for sellers. I'm still a big believer in options, but you've got to provide the actual right data around this.
All right. So there's three things I want to talk before we move on from this. There's three things I want to talk about on this topic. It's NAR. Number two, it's something Sharon said in his video that BAM collabed with yesterday about business models.
I missed that. I missed that. I was flying back from New Orleans.
This, well, I'll share it with you here on the pod.
Yeah.
And it ties into what Lisa's talking about with like being an independent, regional, national, global business models. Okay. So Sharon talked about business models. So NAR business models. And then we got to get into delayed listing. There's some comments here. There's a lot of confusion, I think, of what Zillow is going to do with delayed listing. So first, I'd like everyone's take on NAR. To me, it's fascinating, and I shared this in my quick reaction video yesterday. It's fascinating that Zillow is now taking the position as being a leader in the industry for what the guardrails are going to be. NAR, when they came out with their new CCP, they just sat on the fence. They kind of spread their two butt cheeks on each side of the fence, and they couldn't figure out which side they wanted to be on. They couldn't figure it out.
That's where Kevin Sears likes to sit, guys. I
actually think Kevin's been okay, but they don't know which way to go. They're either scared out of their minds about more litigation, or they just are not true leaders. And both can obviously be true at the same time, by the way. But when they came out with the new CCP, they opened it up where you could basically do anything. New CCP is basically dead CCP. CCP doesn't exist. And so, and I'm not taking a side here of one side or the other. You know, if you're a Compass agent, listen, you want CCP to go away, and maybe you're against CCP, you know, EXP agents obviously against CCP with the leadership from Leo and all of that. What I'm saying is NAR is incapable of taking a position. So what value do they have having an opinion about anything else if they can't take a position? Zillow took a clear position, and they're making changes. Their portal, Zillow.com, impacts the industry way more than what NAR can do. But Lisa, you wanted to jump in.
Well, I was going to say the interesting thing, like we're talking about like Zillow taking a stance. And what I'm going to say is think about why Zillow is taking a stance.
Of course.
So like if all of these listings go off of Zillow, there's so much impact, right? Like, and we know sellers, no offense, Remax, no offense to Coldwell Banker or anybody else that might be offended, but consumers think of Zillow first as the number one place to transact for real estate, look for real estate or whatever, right?
That's because consumers see Zillow as the informational, the real 100%. Estate portal. They don't understand truly that it's a business. They just think, oh,
nope, they have no idea. Correct. But if all four of us are truly honest, if we've gone on listing appointments with our agents or just spoken to sellers, they want their listing on Zillow, right? Mm-hmm. Zillow wants the listing there because if it ain't there
on realtor.com, they want it on as many, they want it maximized. They want it on remax.com. They want it on every single listing portal possible to maximize their exposure. When you explain to them, that's how a buyer is probably going to find your house, not in some little secluded enclave where it's just 15 agents looking at it.
Correct. But if the listing, so that's their leverage to stop the off market stuff, right? Because it's going to be the consumers who push back. But if the listings don't go there, if that clear cooperation goes away, Zillow loses a lot of money through lead gen, Zillow home loans capture, right? Like all of that starts to fade and they lose control of that. They pulled a lever, not within the industry. They pulled a lever with the consumers, right? Like it was just self-preservation. Let's be real.
Yeah, both parties have a vested interest in it.
NAR has no vested interest.
No, NAR does have a vested interest. And
I was talking about Compass having a vested interest in it.
Well, they have a clear vested interest, yeah.
But my point is NAR has historically, and I say this loud and clear, played both sides. And like to Byron's point.
Well, hold on. Clear cooperation only exists because NAR invented it. And they invented it to keep power in the MLSs because they have a tie-in agreement to most MLSs. So listen, NAR, I think both things can be true. They lack leadership, and
Yep.
they can't make decisions right now because they're just scared out of their minds on litigation. Like Robert Revkin, EXP putting their tone. These companies are clearly not scared of litigation right now, even though they've been through a round of it. NAR certainly is, because I think clear cooperation, if it existed, they invented it for a reason because it benefits NAR. And listen, I think we're all in agreement. 99% of sellers should be on the open MLS.
Without a doubt.
That's not even a debate here.
Clear best way to sell the home.
Yeah. But you keep, NAR, you've already had your members, brokers, have an issue with how much power you've given away to the big companies. You can say Zillow or other companies, whatever you want to say. And this is another example of that. There's not just the power grabs of like, okay, is Rocket buying Redfin and attaching mortgage and all those power grabs. Right now, there's a leadership power grab happening, and NAR is letting that slip away minute by minute. That's my take. But I think I also got to walk around Boston, Lisa's town, Boston, with Gary. I got to get inside of the blob and realize, wow, this thing is, I mean, it'd take a long time to kind of lose all those rolls off of that body. So they're not going away like tomorrow,
Those
but
rolls off the body.
it'd take a long time. I mean,
well, I thought at first I was thinking you were saying ROLE, like the roles within the organization, and then it became.
He's talking
clear
about
we were
fat
talking
rolls, Lisa.
ROLS.
Fat rolls.
Byron likes the
Take a minute.
beluga whale. I think that was
beluga whale. A beluga whale looks fit, but there's a lot of fatty tissue in there.
Yeah, I'm a beluga whale.
No, Gary, you're the best in the world.
He's the whale of Remax.
Yeah.
So-
in the most positive way.
Gary can't say anything about NAR.
Yeah, that's not happening.
So we'll move on from that topic.
Look, it just looks away.
Well-
Doesn't even make eye contact.
I can't wait to see Nikea Wright. Hopefully her and I will get to sit down and just have a long form, not a 20-minute scam conversation like most of the
Did
conversations.
you
that we've done.
ever get in touch with that lady that runs the social media, the podcasts for NAR?
I reached out to one of them that was running a podcast. What has NAR done for me lately? I had some questions, and I heard back. I never heard back. No response.
Me and Byron met her in the
lobby.
Yeah.
I offered my assistance, and I'm still offering my assistance to NAR.
There you go.
So I'd love to have a long form conversation with Nikea to kind of dig through some of the stuff. 20 minutes on a stage here and a stage there isn't enough. And press releases aren't enough when there's this kind of attack on the power grab of leadership. I guess we'll leave it there. I want to talk about the business models, because this is what Sharon was talking about in his video. There's an opportunity with this for business models. And so, Lisa, what you mentioned, what I think what Gary's talking about is right. When you compete against, another agent on a listing, and you're able to offer what is perceived to be global exposure, it's a smart idea to have an answer for that. Like my company obviously is a privately owned company. Howard Hanna and William Ravis are the two largest privately owned companies. So it's a bigger, what you called regional company. But even within that company, they have an answer for, like, if I'm going up against Gary and he's talking about global exposure, I'm like, oh yeah, cool. Like we just put you in our luxury property division. I'll get you on Jawai.com. I'll get you on Wall Street Journal UK. I'll get you on all those digital platforms. And so I think you can do that whether you're a small company or a big company, having an answer for that type of global exposure to at least, put it out there that you're going outside of US Zillow, US Realtor is a good business model. And there's going to be a lot of different business models, obviously, that come with this new.
I think
rule
that's
by
good in certain niches. But what I would say is if I look at, where we predominantly serve, which is the suburbs of Boston and into southern New Hampshire, my buyers aren't global. My buyers, it's a meat and potatoes purchase for somebody who's already living in the area, who's going to be working in this area. But so I was saying, like,
Agents, past clients don't exist. Unless, of course, you're retiring in 2025, then consider your clients in the past. But if you're building a business for the future, your clients are your clients. This is where Mosaic comes in, the client experience operating platform for you to manage the client experience. See, cupcakes are cute, it's a nice thing to do, but it won't keep a client tied to you for life. It's not gonna bring the value to their home living, home ownership experience for years to come. CRMs work for lead generation, lead capture, and lead communication, while Mosaic helps you transform how you manage those relationships moving forward with the value that they actually need in their home ownership lifespan. So don't wait, check out mosaic.io or find the link down below.
It's interesting, right? Like, I can see, Byron, where you've kind of got some of the New York City suburbs where that could be really important. Gary in Nashville, I don't know. I mean, maybe in downtown Nashville, which is maybe like downtown Boston, but I mean, I guess that's not the bulk of where your business comes from. And that global exposure really doesn't do much to help your average seller. And the
But
same
why
thing with
would
you,
not-
Tom.
But why would you not use it though? Why would you?
Well, but it's easier
Sounds
for
how
me
that-
no doubt. Why wouldn't you use it since you have it? But it's easy for
Yeah.
me to sell around as a fluff piece that agents are just
Would it-
trying to add that isn't going to add value.
Would
Right?
it be
That's
easier
my-
though to cancel? Like if I'm going up against Gary, I'm just canceling it out. Yeah, I do the same thing Gary does. Now it's canceled. Now it's like, okay, let's try to, as opposed to trying to pitch against it, I'd rather cancel him out. Oh,
Well, but
Gary,
I can cancel him out by saying that his brand is so big that the individual listing isn't going to get the exact attention that, the flip side, right? Like, there's a way to cancel it out that pitches.
Are we going to start arguing now?
No, I think what Lisa's saying is you got to know how to attack the opponent in the listing appointment. That's a skill, and
100%.
I could not
what
agree with her
Lisa-
more.
well, I'll slightly disagree because
okay.
what Lisa's, I agree with what Lisa's saying, but what Lisa's saying works
So
more.
I'm disagreeing with all of you then about that.
What-
My listings wouldn't get the personal attention that
No,
your
that's what I'm
listings
going to disagree with.
No,
because
that's not happening. But people are
What
going
I'm
to say
saying-
it, and
what-
you got to know how to handle it.
Right.
What I'm
That's my
saying
point.
is that is to me not a company conversation. That's best used when I'm going up against somebody who's carrying 30 listings and I'm carrying 0 as the individual agent, and I can use that spin in that situation. But company versus company, I don't know if I
No,
can connect.
I still disagree, Byron, because if REMAC is going to do that, they're going to spend that money and that effort. They're not going to take the $350,000 ranch home in the suburbs of any community and blast it internationally. They're going to save it for the $5 million, the $10 million luxury properties. Like, it's an easy. That's
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking about a $350,000 home, they're not worried
That's-
about being on Jawai.com.
That's my
the
point.
Asian market. Maybe in your market they are. I don't know, Lisa. There's a big Asian population in your market, but anyways,
Well, but
there's
in
not
downtown
$350,000 homes in your market either. But
in
we
some
got plenty
parts
of
there
those.
are. Yeah. But my point is, like, thinking about it, like, there is a niche where in downtown Boston, for instance, that might be maybe a slight disadvantage and I've got to really tweak my strategy. But in the suburbs, which is where I'm going to take a stab and say the majority of agents work and sell homes, I don't think that that's a big selling point that's difficult to navigate.
Gary, we didn't talk about this before we got on the pod, but we're just kind of throwing stuff against the wall right now. Your dog's throwing up its breakfast. It sounds like, jeez. But we're throwing some stuff up against the wall.
Byron,
What
do you not like dogs?
I love.
He
your
does
dogs.
not like dogs. I can tell.
I've heard.
He
I
was
love
at
your
my
dogs.
house. We keep the dog on a leash as a courtesy. He walks around the island and goes, absolutely
dogs-
not, and walks away. This is a French bulldog, by the way, Gary. Your dog's
Dog's
a lot
very,
bigger.
very not well behaved. So that's why you have to keep it on
It's
the
not
leash.
true.
I remember what happened with your dog and my leg when I was in your house.
He thought you were attractive, Lisa. I mean, take it as a compliment.
So, Gary,
Yes, sir.
Gary's dog's very well behaved. Your thoughts on business models that'll come from this?
I don't know. I just focus on what I do.
Are you going to do exclusives? Are you going to like call up Andrew at Real Scout and do Real Scout exclusives or anything like that?
No, because we have the ability to have, I call it the pre-list, because as soon as you sign your listing agreement, there's a gray area, right? Because it's not going to be on the market. It's going to have time to be fixed up. You got to have the professional photography come in.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the period where we have the ability to market that within our brokerage to our clients. It's password protected. Nobody can see it. It's not publicly marketed. And we've taken advantage of that for a long time. And then we put it on the market, and it's open to the rest of the world. So we do occasionally sell some things off market, but at the end of the day, it's what the consumer wants. If the seller says, I'm happy with selling it at this price in this time frame, because that might be what's important to them, the convenience of selling it within 2 weeks or a week, rather than putting it out to the market to maximize the return, that seller might not actually want to do that. So you have to kind of respect the seller's wishes in that respect, which we found when we were doing Zillow offers, and we would find somebody that wanted to sell their house. We would say, if you put it on the market, we can get you $525. Zillow is going to offer you $490. And they would be happy with the $490. And I would say, but if we market it, we can get you maybe we'll get you more. So my logic was obviously that you wanted to maximize the return on your investment of the home. The seller's just like, no, I don't want to deal with that. I just want the convenience of knowing I've closed, I'm done, and I can live in this house for another 2 or 3 weeks. So it took me a while to figure that out, that not everybody wants to maximize the return on their home.
That
Some
is true.
people just want to maximize the convenience, which is why the iBuyers are out there still buying.
So there's been a lot of comments here. This is the third part I want to talk about with that delayed, like Wisconsin, they can have a property delayed status for 21 days. This is just a comment I'm reading on X. Every state's a little bit different. We do delayed listing forms up in Connecticut. But what it almost makes it sound like this release from Zillow that delayed listings might not be able to go on Zillow.com. I don't understand it that way. Like, I imagine they're already putting coming soons on Zillow because coming soons are in
well,
in
isn't it delayed listings that are somehow publicly marketed rather than just internally?
Yeah,
Well,
I think that's what. So we used to have the ability to put it on coming soon for Zillow for one business day before it went in the MLS. So we would typically launch that on a Friday, put it in the MLS on a Monday, generate some buzz, some activity. Now that's gone with Zillow in our market, and that has to do with your local MLS. Bright allowed this, others didn't, and that we had to have a form that signed that said, hey, Bright had it was something you needed to get signed with your MLS. Now that's not even an option, but we do have to get something signed saying, hey, here's when we're going to go on. So it's a little different.
Yeah, it is different. And I think this is where there's confusion right now in local markets, like this comment here in Washington. So I'll clear this up. I think a lot of the MLSs, which have had now for a couple of years, when they started that 24-hour get on the market, we all had what was called delayed listing forms, where it's like I just signed it and they want professional photography. You can't get a professional photographer over there within 24 hours.
Or if they're getting staging done and stuff. I mean, it was very practical to do that.
So that's it. So that's one category. But NAR introducing this, like, their delayed listing feature where you have the ability to market it. If those go public, now those aren't going to be. So it's kind of using delayed listing as two different cases, one where the property is marketed publicly and one where it is truly just being put on the ice box because you got to get the all the stuff, all the photos and all that kind of stuff ready. So I think if it's MLS compliant and not being publicly marketed, from what I'm understanding what Zillow's position is is it'll end up on Zillow.com.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. If you read it, it says even putting a sign in the yard is a violation of that. Like
Ooh.
literally, if you read the announcement from Zillow,
That's
Who's
how
going to police that?
well,
Yeah,
Oh,
obviously,
good luck.
right?
You have other agents that do in local markets at times, because we've been in that
That's-
situation. Because
that's
sometimes
usually what it is.
the sign company is supposed, they put, they've got a 3-4 day window of when they're going to slap that sign up. These guys are driving around drinking Busch Lights. I mean, they're not paying attention to NAR's rules.
But it just becomes interesting, right? Because so the exact Zillow announcement said this means when a listing is publicly marketed to consumers, whether through a sign in the yard, an Instagram post, or a
Oh.
brokerage website. And so I would start to question, like, if there's like some ill will in your marketplace from a competition perspective, do you get agents going around and taking photos of your signs and sending them into Zillow? Like,
Yes,
there's a
that's going to happen.
right. But so Zillow's stance on this is not just on a website. It's like random agent who's not paying attention. Think about this side of it. Random agent who, and we all have them in our brokerages, right? Where they don't know all the rules. They barely attend training as it is. They don't read industry stuff. And they make an Instagram post, new listing just signed, right?
Mm-hmm.
Imagine that gets shared to Zillow, and now that consumer is screwed.
Well, that's
we
if you
all-
put the address. If you're like, I just signed a new listing, that's just a theoretical story. That could be a lie.
No doubt,
Yeah,
but people put the listing, the address on it by
Yeah,
mistake
no, I see
or
it,
whatever.
yeah.
And I mean,
Yeah.
but it legit says, whether it's a sign in the ground or an Instagram post.
I didn't realize about the sign in the ground. That's a little.
Yeah,
a little too much.
It's in the Zillow news announcement. That's their stance on it.
So the
think
best
about Zillow,
argument.
though. Hold on here. So Zillow also listens to everything. I've gotten comments. Hey, I listened to your podcast. I mean,
they're listening
Zillow
right
follows
now.
this stuff, and they police. I mean, they've said they're like, hey, I heard you talked on your radio show about an appraiser coming down from Buffalo, New York. We don't do that with ZHL. They listen to everything. So Zillow's going to be policing this. I'm telling you right now. They're going to be watching social media and doing things on top of the local agents. I would be shocked if they're not.
Well, the best policing that they're going to be able to do is obviously through the MLS. Because somebody asked me that, they're like, how are they going to be able to see if it went? They got the MLS feed. They have an MLS feed. They're a broker in all 50 states, so it's going to be pretty easy to kind of review that. The best argument for what Zillow is doing is consumers see every listing, and sellers in that case are going to get maximum exposure. That's obvious. The best argument for the other side, the Compass side, is it comes into that, sellers should have the decision of being able to do whatever the heck they want to do. I think Revkin has a Instagram that kind of speaks to that. Basically, seller, he just put it up yesterday when this news came out, or right around the same time, probably knowing that this news was coming out. He said the MLS shouldn't be able to dictate how homeowners sell their home. I mean, that's a strong argument on the other side too. I find it not very credible when people don't acknowledge the fact that those cases where it works for that seller to not maximize exposure is so small. Maybe Luka Doncic in Dallas, who got traded to LA, doesn't really want to publicly market his home that he bought just before they kicked him out of Dallas. He spent $10 million. There's only gonna be a few buyers for that property anyways. He's going to call up Dak Prescott and some other people that got the money in Dallas to buy the whole, maybe he doesn't want to be public because he's already got enough public stuff going on with that deal anyways. But most people are going to, all right, let's move on from this. Tom, what else we got with Gary? We only got a little bit of time left with Gary. I want to dig into some team stuff. He's got the number one team in the world at Remax. I want to know how his agents are kicking so much booty out there.
That's what I want to hear as well. We can talk about inflation and other stuff next week. So Gary, tell us what your secret is. 8 years, 9 years at the top, not easy.
Well, Tom, how many agents you got on your team?
Not as many as you. We have 51 today.
Yeah, so we have close to 200. So obviously I have an advantage against a team that only has 15 or 10 agents. But the difference also, I would say, is that we've continually invested back in the team through training, through making sure we have access to not just Zillow as a lead source, but Realtor.com. I invest in SEO. So we're always investing in technology, always trying to be ahead of the curve, always making sure that our agents are knowledgeable and have the training that gives them that advantage, gives them that intel to win the listings, and to when they're working with buyers, they can tap into that resource and they can tap into the power of the team, because you're not just talking to the resources of 5 agents on a team or a single agent. You've got 200 agents, and some of those agents have been on the team for 15, 16, 18 years. I think it's probably the longest. So we have so many resources, and we invest so much back into the agents. I think you guys are all using House Whisperer, so we were beta testing that. They love that. We're working with Broker Blocks, another AI thing. We're using Follow Up Boss, so now we're beta testing the AI on that. So we're always one step ahead. And when you're as big as we are, people actually come to us and say, "Hey, would you like to test this? This is something I think you would maybe find useful." And either we do or we don't. But it enables us and enables the agents to, keep one foot ahead of the competition. So really, I would say it's the size of the team that gives us the advantage. The amount of money that we spend on marketing and advertising, that gives us an advantage, and the training.
Some agents. Oh, go ahead, Lisa.
I was going to say, also don't discount your leadership. You and Deborah are a powerful force, and have built up an amazing leadership team where you guys are definitely a critical part of that. But
I would, 100%. So it's not just me, obviously. I'm like the guy that's on the billboards, but you've got Deborah as my business partner. She's the CEO. She kind of runs everything. But then we also have Scott. Scott Hull is our, I never know what he is because he's a sales director, but he's head of all the tech. So we have all the stuff that Scott invests in the company, his time, his knowledge. And then we got Byron, you met the guys. Joe Levy, who runs our ISA department.
He's a really bright guy.
Yeah, and Shelby, who runs all the recruiting. So I always said when we have these meetings, we got, people call me the visionary. Well, that's because they want me going to conferences and getting out of the way so that they can do things. But we really have a bunch of visionaries as part of the brokerage. So that's thank you, Lisa.
You have an incredibly impressive team and staff. I mean, everybody is really bright, really smart, industry innovators. There's a lot of agents probably across the country, that maybe aren't paying as much attention because you're not putting out as much social content maybe as some others. So it's like, oh, Gary's not on social, but to me, you've been an innovator on building brand. Gary's in Nashville, building brand better than anybody. Like, how do you know? I mean, whether it's like, you're sponsoring the Predators, the NHL team, the Preds. Yeah. You're on the billboards. You've got your G-Wagon, your Remax van. You've got all these things that are branded all over the place. How do you decide what to invest money in? Because agents that are trying to double their business, they'll just start spending money on everything without a strategy. How do you strategize this?
So my because I've done a few podcasts where people have asked me about the history and the development and how do you go from being a single agent to an agent with a 200-person team. So I always said it's luck, vision, and money, because I had some luck when I first got my license, which was 2001. That was the same year as the IDX. So all of a sudden I could have this website with everybody else's listings on, which I thought was amazing. So brand new agent, six months into being a realtor, all of a sudden I could have a website with everybody's listings on, which
created new business models,
which everybody could do, right? But then I was the person that spent $5,000 on a website. And back then, that was a lot of money, and people thought I was crazy.
But that wasn't
going to be
luck.
slow to adapt right now. People are going to be slow to, and I agree, it's not luck either.
It's the ability to take risk, and I really always tell everybody that that's one of the biggest differentiators, right? Like, we can all do the same things, but things like take House Whisper. It's a prime example, and something that you said earlier, where it's leaning into some of that new stuff. Some of it we try for free, but some of it we invest in early and take a
For
little
sure.
bit of risk. Lead sources, right? I think all four of us will always kind of assess a new lead source and say, you know what's the worst case scenario? I lose a little bit of money, but we give it a try, right?
Yeah.
New tech, new AI. So I don't think luck, Gary.
There's a little bit of luck, but I always say that team leaders, that's like we're all going to Vegas, but we take our $250 or $1,000 and we go all in. And if you win, if you're playing roulette and it hits,
but it's not roulette. It's going all in, playing blackjack when you're counting cards. You know that
I can't count cards.
But that's
that's the difference, so that we have the fortitude to actually risk, whereas
correct.
most agents and that's fine, because we need both sides of the coin. Most people don't want to spend all the money and risk everything. They want to be able to take the leads, and they're happy then to pay that internal referral fee.
I agree with Lisa. Like once you have tested something, you have data, it's a lot easier for me to 2 or 3x my realtor.com spend in Q1 leading into the spring market than it is just picking a number out of the sky. I have data to kind of pull on that lever. And so, it's counting the cards, put it, you're going to win.
Well, if you remember, my thing was it's luck, vision, and money, and you need the combination of all this, because you need a little bit of luck, but you need some vision to act on that luck, but you need some money to be able to act on that vision, which then brings in the luck.
100%. And it's
send me some of your damn luck, Gary.
Well, but it's also economies of scale, which I think people often forget as well, right? Like you can't really underestimate the economy of scale and how it factors in. Like, remember back in the day, all four of us will know, Zillow, when we were all market-based pricing, and you would get discounts based on how much, like they would give you an extra 35 or 50% based on how much you were spending.
Yeah.
Economies of scale.
I like those days.
Not having coverage.
So
and based on no coverage there, but yeah.
So we went back to market-based pricing. We're not doing flex anymore.
Oh.
We're actually going back to market-based pricing, because I actually prefer that control of what we do with that lead, rather than being told we have to hit certain numbers, or we have to make sure there's a certain allocation towards Zillow home loans and things like that. So now we actually control our destiny again. So we're buying those leads. The only thing that I valued about Flex was it actually created some systems of accountability and tracking. So I think there's a lot of silver lining to that.
Whether you're getting leads from Zillow or realtor.com or wherever else, I mean, the level of tracking and looking at data that Zillow has taught a lot of team leaders across the country is invaluable. And if you're an agent using a lead magnet on social, you should be tracking it almost as detailed as, a Zillow Flex lead.
Not almost. More.
Yeah.
More.
Yeah.
I'm more. No, it did. They set the bar high for us, and we attained it. And I kind of feel we went past it in certain areas by building in our own systems, which is what Scott built. Scott built all of the tracking, all of the source, seeing how efficient the agents were. So it enabled us, instead of me, who I was normally just flying by the seat of my pants and then seeing how many deals Lisa did, see how many deals Tom did, see how many Byron did. Well, if Byron was doing less than Lisa, then my inclination was to give the leads to Lisa, because I was getting a better return. But then,
of course, then
I'm overloading Lisa, then Lisa takes a dip. So Scott kind of leveled all that out, which is the system called Maverick RE. That's what we use now. But Scott kind of built that. So, but that came from Zillow kind of holding that big stick and going, come on, what are you doing? Why haven't you got what's going on here? So I do think that there was a lot of benefit for being part of the Zillow sellers and then the Zillow Flex. And to be honest, what happened with Zillow sellers, we invested a lot of money in that. Then they turned it off. Well, that's when they introduced us to Flex, because they said they were flipping, the whole country was going to be going to Flex. So at the time, we were spending a lot of money with market-based pricing. So I said, we'll do Flex. So that then left us a lot of marketing money that we could apply elsewhere. And that's when I bought into Market VIP with Realtor.com. I think we started off at 30%, then went to 70%, and now we own all of the market for the Nashville or the surrounding areas in Clarksville. So without Zillow pushing me to do certain things, maybe we wouldn't have had the opportunities that we have now with Realtor.com. The same thing with billboards, because I knew about a guy in Atlanta doing all this billboard marketing a long time ago. Chris Lindahl, Justin Harvard, we all went down. We talked about it. Chris went back to Minneapolis, and then all of a sudden had these billboards. And he said to me, Gary, you got to do billboards. There's definitely a lift here. And then I was like, no, I'm good on SEO, so I don't want to invest all that money. And then Justin in Calgary did the same thing. He listened to Chris, and he said, Gary, you got to do the billboards. So it's Chris and Justin now giving me a hard time about doing billboards. But at the time, they didn't have the SEO that I had going on. So I didn't want to spend all that extra money. Fast forward a couple of years, and then this person from Atlanta comes in, and I know that he was going to put a bunch of billboards around town. So because I knew ahead of time, because I saw a little ad on Instagram saying now hiring, I just knew that I had to be, I guess the best form of defense is attack. So within a week, I'd ordered 50 billboards, and we had 50 billboards go up around Nashville. And then because of that, I think that was the final puzzle of the jab, right hook kind of thing, because we've been doing sports marketing with the Titans, with the Predators. We've been doing SEO, we've been doing radio for 4 or 5 years at that point. And my catchphrase was don't sell without the intel. But when it went on to the billboards, that really elevated. And so thankfully somebody else pushed me to do something. So there's always like I said, there's always a silver lining to clouds.
The big thing that Gary said there is we went and did 50 billboards.
Oh yeah. And I committed to a year.
Yeah.
No, I can't do it.
One billboard is Q, and you'll get some friends to say, hey, I saw your little sign out there. That was very nice. It's not going to make any impact. When you go and start a marketing campaign, you got to go for the whole thing.
Well, that's what I was saying about
best offense is a good defense. Love that.
Yeah.
Our best defense is a good offense.
100 billboards, and we have the digital billboards, and we've utilized that as part of our listing campaign. This is where I would probably argue with Lisa that she couldn't do what I can do in terms of spotlighting that listing on a billboard and the radio commercial.
Yep.
Of course, that goes down to the economies of scale. We can buy those billboards, and I can roll in and roll out what the messaging wants to be on the digital. So for some clients that want to maximize that exposure across all of the platforms that we use, Realtor.com, Zillow, Remax, our personal website, NashvilleRealEstate.com, billboards, and the radio commercial, some people will pay extra for that. And so we have the ability to do that and include them on LuxuryRealEstate.com. Hang on, what else can I do to try and
I've been doing radio for 9 years, and we're still to this day the only company in Connecticut that'll announce every listing every single week on the radio. So it's like it's one of those things that only we do it. And when you only we do it, you have enough only we do this in your listing presentation. It makes an impact, because a lot of agents, to Tom's point, always is going to have a 3-point plan. All right, Gary, we got these two got hard.
I gotta go.
I got to bail. I have a meeting.
Oh, you have a hard stop?
Hard.
And
I'm 5 minutes past.
It's already stopped. Yeah, we're late.
I could shout. I'm going to be on vacation here in about less than 24 hours. So I'm feeling good, Gary. Thanks for coming on.
No, it was fun. It's good times.
Thanks,
All right.
Gary.
We're gonna have
Bye, guys.
Thank you so much for checking out this week's Knowledge Brokers podcast. If you want to take what we're doing here at BAM and use it in your own business, join us over at School. We just switched BAMX into the #1 education and community platform. Go to school.com/BAMX or hit the link in the description, school.com/BAMX. I'll see you in the community.